today, like 70, or I don't remember the exact numbers, but roughly like 70% of all the objects that you do have at geosynchronous orbits are uncorrelated targets, which means that people don't know what it is.
Oh, this is very interesting. I really can't share Beatrice's wonderful interview with Ross in full because News Nation will kill me. But let me give you my take on what Beatrice has just told Ross, and let's discuss it. So, Beatritz Villarroel, she's an astrophysicist working in Stockholm. Excellent woman. And sadly, in this clip, suffering from flu. I hope you get well, Beatrice, very soon. What she found and what she told Ross Coulthard is that prior to October 1957, when Sputnik 1 was launched by the Soviet Union. Now, Sputnik 1 was the first man-made object in orbit. What orbit is when you send something that is moving horizontally fast enough to follow the curvature of the Earth. It's always falling, but the Earth falls away. And that's a very high speed. It will eventually decay as gravity pulls it back into the upper atmosphere and it will burn up. But the Soviet Union managed to launch Sputnik 1 in 1957, very much the year of my birth. I'm a Sputnik baby, which is great. Nobody did it before. If anybody had done it before, and people have been telling me this, they would have made a big song and dance about it. The Americans were trying it. Amazingly, Britain was also trying it by the mid-50s. But the Soviet Union succeeded in launching Sputnik 1 very much because of the spoils of World War II. America got Operation Paperclip, people like Wernher von Braun, who went on to be head of NASA and be in charge of the Apollo program. And Britain actually had an early space industry that fizzled out and went nowhere. But the Soviet Union took all the unfired V-2 rockets from Germany, from the horrible death camps that they were being built in, and took them back to the Soviet Union, where they built a space program. From 1945 until 1957, they redeveloped the German V-2 rocket into something that could launch a small baseball-sized object called Sputnik 1 with a bleeper in, bleep, 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 that could orbit and stay in orbit round the Earth to put the willy up the Americans. And it certainly did, because it meant that potentially the Soviet Union had the technology to launch the fabled intercontinental ballistic missiles, and that's what everybody was worried about. So, of course, Beatrice knows that, and it means that there is nothing man-made in Earth orbit in 1952. So why is 1952 so important? Well, it's a fantastic story that Beatrice tells. She was looking for a survey of the night sky done by a large observatory that often had wide-field surveys of the entire night sky prior to October 1957 to check if there were anything that changed or changed in intensity. Originally, the Vasco project looked at vanishing stars, and she compared a survey that she got hold of in the 50s with modern day surveys, and she could see that there were thousands of stars which actually vanished. But today she's done something far more amazing, which actually points towards things in Earth orbit prior to 1957. So as a complete coincidence, Beatrice got hold of a survey done by the Palomar Observatory in California in 1952. They did surveys with large glass plates where they took wide field of the night sky. And they often took 2 or 3 immediately after each other as soon as they could change the plate or how the camera worked. And what she found, by not comparing those with modern day, but comparing the 2 plates that were taken back in 1952, is that there's a whole bunch of things in the plates which twinkle, which are there and then disappear, and then are there again and then disappear in lines. Amazingly, a lot of them appear in a Palomar survey that was done in July 1952. Why is July 1952 so important? Well, in July 1952, there was a thing called the Washington UFO flap. Members of the public, the US Air Force radar operators measured real hundreds of objects in the sky moving over Washington in July 1952. Amazingly, the same date as the Mount Palomar survey that Beatritz got hold of. She originally didn't put the two and two together, but somebody on her team told her, hang on a minute, you've got these things in the sky at the same time as the Washington UFO flap. Could there be a correlation? Beatritz doesn't know, but the dates match. Isn't that interesting? So Beatritz has found plates from 1952 taken in sequence with things that are moving and catching the light. Nothing man-made was up there in the sky. Nothing was man-made in the sky in 1952. But what she thinks these are objects quite close to Earth, either in low Earth orbit or geostationary Earth orbit, which is 40,000 miles plus, which are rotating and catching a glimpse of light from the sun. You know, let me bring my light and twinkle, twinkle as they are moving around Earth. Oh, well, that's amazing. Today we have lots of twinkly things, satellites. There's a famous set of satellites. There was a mobile phone network called Iridium, and these were triangular-shaped satellites that were all over Earth that you could make mobile phones in the 80s and 90s, very expensive satellite phones. And these Iridium satellites do something called Iridium flares. I've seen them many times. You're looking at the sky and you go, flash, flash, as these triangular-shaped satellites, human, are rotating and glittering from sunlight way up. You're in darkness, but way up there, the satellite is still reflecting the sun if it's rotating. And that's what Beatritz is probably seeing with great possibility in 1952. It doesn't make any sense that they are man-made objects. They're certainly not. So what are they? Of course, we don't know. But here's an amazing piece of film that after the Washington flap, the US Air Force were forced to come clean and do this press conference, which I've managed to find from the National Archive. And it's the unedited footage. Look at how it starts. It's really amazing. Somebody hung a UFO, a flying saucer, over the main speaker. And stick to it to the end, where you get a spokesperson who actually says that he thinks that they're aliens. This is very interesting work, Beatritz. And I hope that her paper gets peer reviewed and not kind of blown apart by the science and astronomy community, because definitely what she has found are twinkling things in orbit round Earth in 1952. What are they? The truth is still out there.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify and analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena, or as light aberrations. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate with to any conceivable threat to the United States. We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any department of the United States. We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
Major Keyhole, as author of the book Flying Saucers Are Real, what is your opinion of these new sightings of unidentified objects?
With all due respect to the Air Force, I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin. During a 3-year investigation, I found that many pilots have described objects of substance and high speed. One case, pilots reported their plane was buffeted by an object which passed them at 500 miles an hour. Obviously, this was a solid object, and I believe it was from outer space.